Well, good night if you're in the UK. Good evening if you're in the US. And everyone, thanks for joining us again for weekly Premier League Forum. It's great to be back. We have had another interesting week of football, what we call here in the States soccer. Probably a better name for that game, but it's been really, really interesting actually having games all throughout the week. You know, normally you would have games Saturdays, Sundays, and then you get another feature on a Monday, but we've been having games all throughout the week. So if you're a really football fanatic like I am, well, in the States, you have to record certain games and watch them, or you get to watch them on the weekends. Andy and Tony, good night, guys. How are you doing? How are you doing, Andy?
I'm good, man. You?
I'm doing well. Tony, how you doing? How your week been?
Yeah, it's been good. Just happy to see positive results for the Arsenal.
Well, you know what? We'll talk about the Arsenal. We'll talk about the Premier League. But given that we're both, Andrew, given that we're both in the Europa League, we will also touch upon that a little bit. So, Andy, you have had another good week. Last week you got lucky. I'm going to say you got lucky. You got lucky. The week before that, I'm sorry, against Fulham last week. So it's been an interesting last few weeks. I keep telling my friends and colleagues that Arteta is taking us in the wrong direction. Arsene Wenger took us from first to like fourth. Emery took us to fifth and then got fired before he could take us further. Arteta took us to eighth, and now we're 10th, trying to compete with the Leeds and the Crystal Palace of the world. You can tell, by the way, I'm not totally sold on Arteta. But we'll talk about the games, the Premier League games of the week, and then talk about predictions next week. But before we do that, we'll touch upon the Europa League games. So, Andy, how do you think your team did during the week? And what's your expectation going forward for Spurs as it relates to the Europa League, not the Premier League?
Well, in terms of that, I mean, we've obviously had another good week, a second good week in a row. I mean, that's a good win against Palace on Sunday. You know, and obviously it was great to see, you know, Bale really beginning to find his form, along with Kane. You know, the big boys are hitting form at the right time of the season. You know, it might have taken Bale a while to find his feet, but if we wanted him to find his feet at any point, now is a good time to find it. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see, can we keep Kane? Can we keep that front three fit for the rest of the season? If we can, we literally got a chance in anything. Because with Son, Kane, and Bale firing, well, Son's gone through a bit of a drought recently, but he just needs one to come off his shin or something, and then he'll kick into gear again, I'm sure. But if we can keep those front three fit, we could beat anybody.
Yeah,
it's as simple as
that. Andrew Roach, good evening. Greetings. Andrew said greetings to all. Thanks for joining us. Tony, well, I would say first thing about good evening, G. Thanks for joining us also. And by the way, G, I'm not a Xhaka fan. Tony, and before we go further, I want to say this, which is at the start of the season, we were all, well, if you're an Arsenal fan, perturbed that Bale joined Tottenham, having that what we call awesome front three, but it hasn't materialized as we would expect. But now it seems to come into play maybe 2 weeks too early, but it is what it is. Because you're playing a Sunday, so a little bit too early for me, frankly. But Tony, this week Arsenal played Olympiacos and did what they normally do, which is start out strong, decide to make the game competitive, and then at the end put it away. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, tale of two halves, a tale of you know, missed opportunities, because we should have had that game sewn away by half time, and then we come on second half and we give away a silly goal, which we've been guilty of so many weeks now. This year, giving away goals has been particularly poor. But you know, Arsenal seem to want to take their fans for an almighty emotional roller coaster ride at the moment. So I've kind of just bedded in and got ready for it.
Hey, 18, thanks for joining us. I'll say a couple of things on that. One is, David Luiz, Leno, and more recently Ceballos and Xhaka consistently. we have 4 players who are really in the gifted mode. And they all play Sunday against Spurs. Kane, the problem that we don't realize is that everyone is having a go at Ceballos and Leno. But David Luiz's error was even much worse. Because at least Leno passed the ball to Ceballos and he tried to beat someone. He was in a difficult spot. David Luiz's error, which didn't result in a goal, was 10 times worse. If the kid had just relaxed, he just could just put the ball in the goal. And David Luiz, that's why Lampard got rid of him, does that on a regular. Very good footballer, can use both feet, composed when he doesn't have pressure. But when he gets pressure, as he did in the World Cup, when in 2014, he loses his head, and that's what happened. So he can't play on my team, but Arteta loves him. And now he keeps playing over Holding. And so we'll have David Luiz for the rest of the season and maybe next year. But if you have him, make sure you score a lot of goals because he's going to give up goals. So we'll go to the Andy, you're going to say something? Sorry.
I was just going to say that when some of the Arsenal games I saw earlier in the season, when you went on a good little run, you had Gabriel and Holding at centre half, and that looked to be your strongest defensive pairing that I'd seen for some time. Now I know Gabriel's gone off form a little bit, but those two, when they were sort of confident, looked quite strong together. So personally, I would have persisted with that to build a longer term partnership rather than throwing Luiz, who is a gifted player but a liability. And as you were saying just now, he's always got an error. He's a bit like Eric Dyer at Spurs, where they can have exceptional games where they do everything right and you keep a clean sheet and they look great, but there's always an error there. And when you're playing the top sides, those errors become more regular. And it's what happened to Spurs against when we had consecutive games against Liverpool and Chelsea and Manchester City, and Dyer was at the back, and we could, he kept making mistakes. Sanchez as well, although Sanchez has found a little bit of form, but yeah.
Yeah, G's saying a typical Arsenal performance this season: in complete control, then outrageous self-destruction, hugely frustrating. But you've got to admire Burnley. Yeah, well, we'll get to that game now. So we played Burnley on the weekend on Saturday, and I'll touch upon that game. What were your thoughts, Andy? Did you see the game?
I saw most of it. I didn't see all of it, but I did see most of it. I mean, Xhaka, I'm trying to work out what he thought he was doing, because he had time. He was looking that way. For him to say he couldn't see Wood or he was trying to clear him, I just don't understand what he was doing. You just put the ball anywhere, bar there. It was just I don't get what he did. But on the whole, it was a decent Arsenal performance for a fair part of the game. But like you say, you shoot yourself in your foot with silly defensive errors. You hit the post, I think, in the last minute, didn't you?
Ceballos did. Yep.
Hit the post in the last minute, and you could have got out of that with 3 points, but didn't. And I think that probably finished your realistic hopes of European qualification last week. I know you still mathematically could do it. You'd have to go on a hell of a run, but it is still possible. But I don't see you being consistent enough in the last 10 games to make it. But we'll see.
Tony, what were your thoughts?
I mean, it's been a roller coaster, and you see the worst of Arsenal, you see the best of Arsenal. We weren't at it on the Saturday morning, early morning kickoff. For some reason, I just don't think they were ready for it. Shooting boots weren't on. People were missing easy opportunities. The normal free-flowing football that we expect to see at the top of the pitch wasn't there. So overall, it was a bit disappointing. But as I said, I'm now embedded for a roller coaster last month and a half.
Yeah, my frustration is around the manager, frankly, because he keeps playing certain players like William, and Xhaka all the time, who I think sometimes need to watch and observe. In the game, I think Xhaka actually, the forward was going towards the goal and stopped and changed direction. And I thought he probably looked down first, saw the pass, and then by the time he didn't look up to make the pass, that's why he played the way he did. I'm not sure he was trying to clear him. He said he was trying to clear him, but I don't think he was trying to clear him. But regardless, I thought the mistake was sheared. I thought it was 95% Xhaka and 5% Leno, because he couldn't do anything with the ball when he got the ball. To me, except give it back to Leno.
Except for the fact that I believe that the plan, what Leno thought was that Xhaka was going to turn the other way and the ball was going to go left. But instead, Xhaka kind of received the ball, dwelt on it, and then realised that maybe that angle was closed off. So he went that way without really looking where Wood had ended up. But
Xhaka or Elneny don't go left or right, Andy. Xhaka or Elneny can't go left or right. They can't turn. They're tractors. It's hard to turn a ship like that, right? If it was Partey, he would probably turn. Or Ceballos would try to turn like he did in the Europa League game. Xhaka is not turning, so it's not happening.
It's not that I thought he's turning. I just thought that he received the ball almost on his back, like he was almost on his heels when he received it, rather than being on his toes and receiving the ball. I think he lost one option out to the left because he was a bit slow in possession, if you know what I mean, without, he wasn't on his toes, and then he got caught, and then I only felt he had one way to go. But I think Xhaka does. I mean, I've seen Xhaka make several mistakes over the years. I think Apollo just mentioned it just now, how many mistakes he's made. Or is it Apollo or the other guy? Yeah.
18 says.
Yeah.
9 mistakes leading to goals in 2017. David Luiz has more, by the way. I'm sure he does. If you count penalties, that scores, that results in goals, David Luiz probably has much more than that. So we're very good at that, by the way. Dyer is not in a class by himself. We're very good at creating our own mess, and then the forwards will try to clean it up. And our forwards are not goal scorers, except for Abba, frankly, and to a lesser extent, like I said. If you think about it, we have Saka and William playing up front most times. Both of them are not really scoring goals. William hasn't scored a goal all season.
We have Dyer, Sanchez, and Aurier to give you competition.
But then you have Bale, Song, and Kane up front. Right. So they can, they're scoring 4 and 5 goals. We don't have that luxury.
Tell me, what's the story with Martinelli at the moment? Because I really like him, and I don't understand why he doesn't get more of a run.
William is keeping him out the side. The great William is keeping him out the side. That's what I do it.
The great William.
The great William, because he has to be, because Klopp thinks Martinelli's the next coming up.
William did have one good game last week, didn't he?
He had a good game. He's been playing better of late, but he's still not putting the ball in the net. His assists are normally, the player has to create the goal. He's not putting on a platter for you. So I don't see how he justifies playing over Pepe, for example, because now Pepe is playing defense. Not before when Pepe was just playing offense. Now Pepe is actually running back and trying to play both ways, but William still plays. So Torque is saying, how can a Spurs fan be on here trying to give criticism about any other team? That's a joke in itself. I'm not trying to hear any Spurs fan give any talk on my team. Tariq, I think we have toned down the deafness in this forum when it comes to Spurs. Andy's a welcome member of this forum. We want his perspective. We want his view. And by the way, he's a very informed and objective fan. So I would suggest that you embrace Andy versus want to kick the Spurs fan at the forum. But thanks for joining us. We appreciate you joining us. We'll go to other games, actually. Arsenal was the only team that played. I won't do every game. Leicester-Brighton, one was thought was a good game that I watched. What were your thoughts, Andy?
Again, I think Brighton were the better side, and yet Leicester got the win. How many times have you said that about Brighton games this season? It's happened time and time again. And I was looking at earlier today the table. They've only won 5 games this season, Brighton. They've had 11 draws or whatever it is, but they've only won 5 matches, and 2 of them are Liverpool and Spurs. So I mean, it shows you they're not beating the teams they need to beat. And Brighton are in trouble. That they really are. Now Fulham have caught them. They are in real trouble. If they don't start winning some games, it wouldn't shock me anymore if Brighton went down, despite the fact that in terms of watching them, they're a decent team to watch. They play good football, but they're just not putting the ball in the net often enough.
Yeah, it shows you that a team that, even though they have quality in their team, they are almost in every single game. They lost Lamptey for a long time, and yet they're still struggling because they can't score, as you're saying. So goals are important. I know we talk about having great defense. They're not giving up goals, but they're not scoring. What were your thoughts, Tony?
Yeah, similar to Andy, in fact. I mean, look, every team that doesn't have a prolific striker who can score you 15 goals in a season plus is going to struggle. I question some of the strikers who are in the Premier League right now, whether they're capable of doing that. And the teams that are struggling are the teams who haven't got a striker who's above 10 right now. And hence the reason why Arsenal are in a predicament right now, because both our strikers are on 9 goals. It's nice that we got 2 strikers on 9 goals, but really what we needed was somebody scoring more regularly in every game as opposed to sometimes in some games. But Brighton just haven't got a striker. They've missed that all season long. They'll fight teams hard. They'll play good football. But, look, the same could be said for Fulham. The same should be said for Sheffield United. They're all capable on their day of running a team hard, but they lack a finisher.
Right. Now, it's true, and Brewster was brought in to help Sheffield. That hasn't worked out well. Welbeck was brought in to help Brighton. Well, we know what Welbeck's capability is. He scored 1 in 6, so that hasn't helped. Fulham, Liverpool again, who seems to be doing well in the Champions League, but not so well in the Premier League. What were your thoughts, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, this was not an unexpected result. I mean, it wasn't like it was a shock for the weekend. We know Liverpool are in freefall right now. They are struggling. And to be honest, they did well in midweek in the Champions League, considering how poor their form has been. But this was no surprise to us. We've all talked this up last week about how good Fulham are playing right now. And they did it again.
Yeah.
But the fact that I think in all the predictions, only 1 or 2 went for a Liverpool win. If you think back just a few months, it would have been a clean sweep. Everyone would have been predicting a Liverpool win. It wouldn't have been. It would be like, how many they're going to win by, I predicted 1-1, and obviously, they, and that was only because I thought, well, surely they're not going to go there and win, but they did, and they deserved it as well, I think, and so, Fulham are in really good form. Liverpool, for me, I do not understand. I mean, you saw Fabinho playing in midweek against Leipzig. They put Fabinho back in midfield. That made a huge difference. He is one of the best deep-lying midfielders, number 6s, whatever you want to call it, in the world. And when he went back in that position, you could see why. And so I personally think that Liverpool, if there was one criticism I'd make of Klopp, and I think, he's had a lot of praise and he deserved a lot of praise. But I think sometimes you can try too hard to tinker with the team. If he'd have just left Fabinho in midfield all the season rather than trying to put him at centre half and just tried to cope with even more junior centre halves, but leave the midfield and the forward line the same, a lot of teams would still have struggled to cope with Liverpool with the same midfield and forward line, that the defence might not have creaked too much. But by starting to shift the midfield and put the midfielders back at centre half, then you have real problems. So I just think Fabinho gave a lesson in midweek in how to play number 6, the number 6 role. Played really, really well, and that helped.
He does have a great understanding with Wijnaldum, because I thought the 2 of them were both superb in that game.
I mean, obviously Henderson's injured at the moment, but if you have Wijnaldum, Fabinho, and Henderson when he gets back in midfield, along with the normal front 3, well, that front 6 has destroyed everybody for 2 years.
Yeah.
So how much is that defence going to get put under pressure if they're controlling the midfield? I think the problem is Liverpool have taken the heart out of their midfield to put it at the back, but then people have been running through the midfield and then exposing Liverpool at the back. It's a difficult call. You understand why he's gone for putting the experienced players at the back. but I just think sometimes change as few positions as possible. I've never been a big fan of making 5, 6 changes and moving 3 people, playing 3 people out of position. Play as many people in their right positions as possible and just play whoever you've got. Even if you've got to bring up an academy player, just play them in that position.
And the other player that I want to highlight for Liverpool, who I think has been an X factor for them, is Thiago, because I think he's struggled and he's still struggling in the Premier League. The game's too fast and physical for him. You could see on Wednesday in a much slower competition where you get to play, he's a superb player. But you know, the Premier League's just a little bit too fast, and he's getting better, but he's still not quite there.
Well, I said a few weeks ago, if you remember in the podcast, that Thiago really needs someone in the Premier League, with the pace of the Premier League. Thiago needs someone alongside him in there. Fabinho can kind of do that role by himself and cover the ground. But when Thiago plays in there and abroad, he gets away with it. But in the Premier League, he needs somebody else to cover the ground alongside him. And then that means that's weakening the rest of your team. Whereas Fabinho goes in there and you can play everyone else where you want. Thiago's a wonderful player. I'm just not 100% convinced that he's wonderful for the Liverpool side, the way they play. The way Liverpool play, I'm not sure Thiago fits that system. He could be great in a different team.
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One, I think Klopp was trying to play his best players. So his midfield is strong as defense. Now he's lost Gomez and Van Dijk and Matip. So he was trying to play his best players because his midfield, he has about 5 or 6 good midfielders. The problem is who he puts in his central defense just weren't good enough at the point. So instead of shoring up in front of the defense, and that would then help them in terms of them coming together, he actually weakened this midfield. Thiago is not a good defender. So Thiago is very good on the ball, great passer, but he's not the best defensively. Henderson and Fabinho are much better defensively. If he had kept those 2 in front of the defense, it would have been a better solution. He still has a problem, though, because now he's going to have 4 midfielders. He's going to have Henderson comes back, then he has 4. So who does he play? What 3 does he play of the 4? Does Thiago sit?
No.
Just quickly for Andrew.
Go ahead, Andy.
Just quickly for Andrew, I'm not sure Thiago deserves to have Xhaka compared to him in the same sentence.
Not in the same sentence. No way.
No, Thiago is a very, very good Look, if you can make a 40-yard no-look pass on the dime, you're a good footballer. He's just not a good defender. When he plays for Bayern, because they dominate the ball, his defensive deficiency doesn't show up. The Premier League is much quicker. You get shown up if you're not there defensively. Henderson and Fabinho are excellent defensively, and they cover off a lot of Liverpool deficiency. The problem for Liverpool now is when Henderson comes back, now Jota is in the middle. It's looked like Firmino and probably Thiago would be on the bench because Wijnaldum will play. So it's going to be interesting to see how Klopp juggles that team, because he's going to have 4 good midfielders and 4 good up front. Mane and Salah are going to play. So who plays in terms of Jota or Firmino, or in terms of Thiago or Wijnaldum? Because Henderson will also play because he's the captain.
But the interesting thing is going to be end of the season, what they do with Wijnaldum, because he's out of contract at the end of the season, isn't he?
He's leaving.
They're trying to get him, I think, to sign a new deal, but there's been rumours, I think, linking him with Barcelona, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's the funny thing about Wijnaldum. When he was at Newcastle, I didn't rate him that highly, but he's turned into a very, very useful midfielder.
He's really important to that Liverpool team.
Yeah, Tony, he didn't turn into a good midfielder. He was a good midfielder. He just played on a bad team. You just couldn't see it.
I didn't rate him that highly. I thought he was good. I thought
agree.
He was a tidy player, but I didn't rate him highly. You know, sometimes you look at players and you don't think, Jordan Henderson at, was it Villa?
No, it wasn't Villa. It was, where was Jordan Henderson before he came to Liverpool? It wasn't Villa.
Sunderland?
Yeah, wherever he was.
One of those teams.
That player and think, there is going to be there's going to be a future Liverpool captain. Because remember, we're talking about a guy taking on the mantle of Steven Gerrard. And you would never have picked Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, in fact, he almost left, actually. They almost got rid of him. way back when Gerrard was there and he wasn't producing, when the legend was there. Who was it? Was it Kenny Dalglish? Whoever was there, but he was playing, then all of a sudden his game turned around. So you sometimes can't give up on players. So everyone, don't give up on Xhaka. He may yet come good. Man U versus Man City, interesting outcome. I'm not sure anyone picked Man U to win that game. What were your thoughts, Tony?
I picked it. Remember, Andy? I was the only person who picked Man United to win.
Well, yeah. You must have talked to Jesus before the game, did you? Nobody could predict that.
I just had a feeling. Decision. I just had a feeling. You know, I said, you know, I felt that Man City were at a point now in the season where they just turning up, and they've literally won that league now at canter.
Yeah. Well, I thought they played better. What do you thought, Andy? I thought they played better than Man U, but didn't come up with a result. What were your thoughts, Andy?
The onus was totally on Man United to turn up and deliver a performance which would give their fans hope that they can do something at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I thought Man United deserved the victory. I thought they started the game very, very well and set the tone early. And City just weren't really on it on Sunday. I mean, they've won 21 games on the spin. I mean, 15 in the league. That's an incredible run. You're going to have an off day at some point. It's going to happen, and it happened in the Manchester derby, unfortunately for City. But they're still going to win the league at a canter, and what can you say? But I mean, I didn't see it coming, but well done, Tony, for calling it.
Yeah, look, I expect
that joke by Apollo is sick.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Don't worry, Liverpool. At least this is Apollo. Don't worry, Liverpool. At least you're still following the government guidelines by being schooled at home. I don't have any pity for Liverpool. They won the Champions League. They won the Premier League in a canter. They still have very good players. Van Dijk's going to come back. Gomez is going to come back. They have an abundance of riches. They'll return. They add one or two more players. I'm not sure where they're going to play, frankly, because they do have abundance of riches. And they'll be back up there fighting with Man City. I'm more concerned about Arsenal. And Andy, I'm sure about Spurs, because we have been falling further behind. Well, Arsenal have been falling further behind. Spurs look like they have some hope. I'm not sure we have any hope. Next game was Chelsea versus Everton. Andy, your thoughts on that game? Chelsea won a game. And I'll say this before Andy says something, which is a manager can make a difference. I say this again. A manager can make a big difference. Lampard was struggling with Chelsea. The new manager comes in, clean slate. Nobody has a surety about their game. Everyone has to fight for their game. And you can see that in Chelsea team in terms of how they're playing and how they're playing, not for the manager, but for themselves and for their positions. And they're upwards and onwards. What are your thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I felt Chelsea would win this 1-0. I think I said 1-0, but okay, it was 2-0. But yeah, I mean, Tuchel's got them. Tuchel, how you pronounce it. I think he's got them well organised, and I said this before. The difference between Chelsea under Lampard and Chelsea under Tuchel is so great in terms of tactical awareness and how to manage a game, and also he has a fantastic squad there, and I don't think Lampard got the most out of that squad. But I also believe that the squad have to take some responsibility, because I think to some extent some of them got a bit disinterested under Lampard. And I think that was showing in the performances, which is why I think they chose to make the change. I mean, I have a similar feeling about Solskjaer at United. I don't think he's the answer for Man United if they want to get back to and challenge at the top level. I think Manchester United need a bigger, more experienced manager than Solskjaer. These guys were great foot players in their day. Lampard, Gerrard will be the same when he comes in. He's done well with Rangers. But I think to go straight into a club that's a Champions League club and expect these guys to have the tactical nous when they're coming up against your Ancelottis and your Mourinho's and Klopp's and Guardiola's, it's hard for them to have that knowledge when they've only been managing for a year. It's tough. So, I just think
I don't agree with that, Andy. I actually think if you're close to the game in terms of playing it, and remember, these guys have had careers, 20 plus years. I think that there's a lot to be said for having experienced it on the pitch and understanding what it's like to motivate younger players. I think some of the old guard managers nowadays, I think they're struggling with the new game. I think they're struggling with the new type of player that we've got.
But what I'm saying is that the likes of the great players are at the top level are struggling to match the tactical nous of the managers who've got the experience of playing in the Champions League. I think Lampard. It may just be.
Yeah, but think. If you think about that, what you just said, which older manager right now is really showing his nous in a Champions League? Because you've got people like Nagelsmann, Tuchel, Pochettino. These guys are doing way better than most people are considering, and they're young managers, really.
But they are young managers, but they are also experienced in the Champions League. Nagelsmann's been in the Champions League for a couple of years, 2-3 years now. Tuchel's been he's been at PSG and Dortmund. He's got plenty of experience now. What I'm saying is Lampard had a year at Derby, and then all of a sudden he's at Chelsea trying to deal with 50 million pound players and stuff. And I'm not saying that Lampard wasn't a fantastic player. He was. And he may well go on with his experience as a player to become a great manager. But I think he needs more experience first than going straight into that Chelsea job, particularly when your boss is Abramovich, who's known for having an itchy trigger finger.
Yeah, most great players don't make great managers, right? Think about Ferguson or Wenger or Guardiola. Guardiola wasn't great. He was a good player. He wasn't a great player. He was a good player.
He was a pretty good player. He played for Spain and Barcelona.
I know, but I wouldn't call him great. Great is Gerrard. Great is Lampard. Great is Shearer.
Zidane. Zidane won everything.
Zidane is an all-star team. Zidane is an all-star team. Pick itself. He has an all-star team. I'm sorry. I'm not giving Zidane all that credit. He has an all-star team. They buy the best players like Guardiola does. Think about these guys.
Still have to win it.
I agree, but when you have unlimited cash to buy the best players, you should win. That's what Man City has done. That's what Chelsea has done. Chelsea, Man City has proven it.
It's almost like saying conversely, Carlo Ancelotti, without having a Juventus, an Inter, or a Milan in his control, what's he won? He won at Chelsea when Chelsea had everything. But put him at Everton, what's he doing?
So Tony, let me ask you a question.
He's doing a lot better for Everton than anyone else has done for Everton in the recent history.
They're still not doing that well.
So here's my question, Tony. For the last,
in their game in hand, they're a point behind Chelsea in full.
Yeah, we don't have changes at the top of these leagues, whether it's the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, or the Premier League. It's the richest team who wins. Barcelona is the richest, and Real Madrid win in Spain. Bayern Munich wins in Germany. Man City, more recently Liverpool, and Man U wins here. That's how it works. The richest teams are the ones who win. And Man City has unlimited cash. That's why they keep on winning, because they buy the best players, they play them the best. That's why they keep on winning. Let's not give these coaches that they walk on water. Klopp, to me, walks on water. Because Liverpool doesn't have the most money. He's buy players on the cheap, 30-something million for Mane, 30-something million for Salah, and turns them into world beaters. But I don't think most of these managers we're talking about, like Zinedine or Guardiola, frankly, because people give Guardiola the credit, didn't win the Champions League outside of Barcelona when they had Iniesta, Xavi, Messi. He hasn't won the Champions League. And he has the most money, both in Germany and the US. And, I'm sorry, not the US, but the UK. But time is of the essence, so let's keep on going for the upcoming games. For this week, we just saw a game this evening where Newcastle played against Aston Villa. I think is a game that one shouldn't watch. You may lose interest in football. I won't even comment on it. I'll go on to the next game. I will say this, though.
Just fast forward to the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's true. Where 2 goals were scored and none of those goals were world beaters either. It shows you that you can have one-man team I think Crystal Palace is a one-man team and Villa is a one-man team, and it's proven that the theory is right when both Zaha and Grealish doesn't play for those teams respectively.
I think a game I think you need to give credence to is West Ham against Leeds, because that was a tough one on paper. But West Ham again,
okay.
West Ham again have proved their mettle.
Yes,
and for people to overlook them as a potential top four, I think that's disingenuous, because they are playing with freedom that right now.
So here's the question for Andy and Tony. Which team has the better squad of the three teams? Tottenham versus West Ham and Arsenal versus West Ham. Between Arsenal and West Ham, who has the better squad?
Arsenal has the better squad.
And same thing for you, Andy, between Tottenham and West Ham.
Tottenham.
So is it that Moyes is getting more out of his squad than both Jose and Arteta getting from their squads?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means Moyes is underrated. Because after he left Man U, which didn't work out too well, he was, floundering around, land at West Ham. They gave him a second contract after they got rid of him before, and now he's doing really, really well. So we talked about experienced manager. I think Andy has talked about that. This combination of you knowing the game and having experience to be able to, because man management to me is probably as good as important as tactical awareness when you think about football, especially at the highest level where players have huge egos. And I think Moyes has done a real good job. Similarly, I think Klopp does a good job as you look at Liverpool. Apollo is saying Moyes is punching above his weight, Bertram. We know following Fergie or Wenger was always going to be impossible. Yeah, and I would agree with that. But at the same time, I do think Man U didn't make the right decision of having Fergie picking Moyes to run Man U, given where he came from and didn't have the pedigree to do so. And I'm not sure Emery was the wrong choice. I think his communication skill, his language barrier was a challenge for him. But he should have made fourth. If he had played the right team against Crystal Palace, I keep saying this, when we finished fifth, we would have won that game and gotten fourth. So I don't think it was that Emery was a bad manager. He just made some bad decisions at the wrong time. We'll go to the games coming up this week. I won't touch up on every single game, probably more of the key games. I'm looking at the list here. We have Leeds versus Chelsea tomorrow at 7 a.m. Am I seeing that right? It's an interesting game.
12:30. 12:30. Yeah.
I'm sorry. 7:30 a.m. Tony for me.
I just gave you an extra half hour sleep.
What your prediction, Andy, on that Leeds Chelsea tomorrow? 12:30. I'm sorry, everyone. If you're in the UK.
I would like Bielsa to be. I mean, Tuchel's very good, but I prefer to watch the Bielsa style than I do the Tuchel style. It's very pragmatic and organised, but you prefer to watch Bielsa's teams. I would love Bielsa to put one over Tuchel tomorrow. I don't think it's likely to happen, but the Spurs fan in me will call a 1-1 draw.
Tony?
Yeah, this is a difficult one because it's at Leeds. So I kind of feel that
no fans though.
I'm going to call this a 1-1 draw.
Well, it seems like you're Andy the same. I'm going to pick Chelsea 2-1. I think Tuchel will have them playing really, really well. I think they're very organized. He rotates his squad really well. All the players are interested. They know they may play if they're practicing well and if they play well the previous week. So I'm going to pick him to play. I think Werner and Havertz, Pulisic is on the bench a lot of times. Hudson-Odoi, everyone, they're young, full of energy. He rotates him really well. I think they'll win that game. These games are not great this weekend. Burnley versus Everton. What's your prediction, Tony? It's not the best games, frankly, apart from the derby on Sunday.
It's at Everton, isn't it?
Yes. Burnley, Everton, Tony.
Everton to win that one, 1-0.
Andy?
I'm going to go for another 1-1.
Wow. I'm going to pick Everton 3-1. I saw Spurs against Burnley. I saw Burnley against Arsenal. Our wingers don't score, so that that's the problem with our team. Spurs destroy them, so I'm going to pick Everton to win 3-1. Fulham versus Man City. Interesting game. Andy?
Is that a Man City?
No, it's Fulham.
It's not Fulham.
Fulham are in good form. It wouldn't shock. I mean, again, it's a sign of the times to say it wouldn't shock you if Fulham got some kind of result. But I suspect Man City. I mean, Man City will have maybe one eye on Mönchengladbach on next week because they've got to get that over. They've got that, and there's no doubt that Pep's going to want that more than anything, the Champions League. So I wouldn't be surprised if Fulham could maybe get a draw in this one. But
don't forget, Man City played in midweek. They played Wednesday. Fulham had a whole week off.
But Man City have got so many players. They can change 8 players and still have a team on the pitch. I suspect Man City will still. I'll go 2-1 Man City.
Tony?
I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Let's go, Fulham. They're riding high off the win against Liverpool as well.
I think Andy said it right. Andy says Fulham, Man City has a big squad and a very good squad. I'm going to say 4-1 Man City. Man City doesn't have one eye, Andy. They have 4 eyes. So even when they have 2 eyes that covers up looking at Mönchengladbach in the week, they still have another 2 eyes because they have 25 very good players. So I'm going to pick them to win 4-1.
I think Fulham. Man City conceded 2 goals against what I consider to be a weak Southampton team in the midweek.
Yeah, but they're going to score. I think between Foden and Sterling and Mara, they just have too much quality.
Bear in mind, Fulham have only conceded, I think, one or 2 goals in last 6.
Yeah, but that's when you can't touch the ball, because Fulham keeps the ball really well. But when you can't touch it, then it becomes difficult if you're offensive minded, and you will lose interest. They'll let them lose interest. They'll frustrate them. I think they'll win 4-1.
I really like that Henderson at the back for Fulham. He's a good player.
No, they have some good players, actually. They have some good players throughout their squad, actually. If you see Mitrovic is not even getting on the field, no, they have a decent team. Southampton versus, we didn't call that game, the Sunday game. Southampton-Brighton. Tony?
This is bragging rights. South Coast bragging rights. This is a big game.
No Danny Ings.
That's a massive miss. I'm going to actually go for a Brighton win.
Okay.
Southampton right now, they can't buy a win. So I'm going again. Brighton 2-1.
Andy?
I'm going to have the same scoreline, but the other way. Southampton 2-1.
I'm going to say 2-2. I mean, both these teams are struggling. 2 is a lot for Brighton to score, but I think Southampton's a little bit leaky at the back. I think Southampton will score. Huh?
Bertram's going for a Desmond.
Yeah, look, I think, isn't Theo returning? I think since Theo went down, they've gone south. I'm not going to give him all the credit, but they've gone south since he pulled his hamstring. So I expect him to be back tomorrow. He's been out for a while now. Maybe he'll help them. Adams plays well. If Ince is out, Ince hasn't had the best run over the last 4 or 5 weeks, actually. Not sure if he's not getting service. They lost Romeo for the season, I think it is. So that's part of their struggle because he's like a Højbjerg in their middle, in terms of showing up the middle. So interesting game, but I'll say it's 2-2. Leicester versus Sheffield. Sheffield has lost their manager. Tony?
3-0 Leicester.
Okay. Andy?
I obviously really want Sheffield United to win, but I just can't see it. So I'll go 2-0 Leicester.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same score. Sheffield just doesn't score goals. Not sure they're going to score. Man U, West Ham. Tony?
This is a juicy game. It's at Old Trafford. This is the telling game for West Ham. And I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to go 1-1.
Lingard is not playing, by the way. As you know, Lingard is he's on loan. So not in club type, but he's, yeah. So, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, 1-1 was high in my thinking. I've got a sneaky feeling West Ham might be able to turn Man United over. Maybe United 1, West Ham 2.
I'm gonna go with Andy just because I do think that Rashford may not be playing. I'm not sure about Cavani's health. Martial is not reliable. The kid Diallo looks really, really good, so we'll see what happens. He probably will play tomorrow. So
He's
I'm
got
gonna
a lot
pick.
of skill, Diallo. Very,
He's
very.
ridiculously skillful. Ridiculously skillful.
But I think he would be out-muscled against West Ham. I'm not sure he'd get risked against West Ham.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Antonio bullying their defense. Should be an interesting game, actually. I'm going to pick West Ham 2-1. Then Wolves versus... You notice I've skipped a game, by the way. Wolves versus Liverpool. Wolves versus Liverpool. You notice I've skipped a game. Wolves versus Liverpool. What do you pick, Andy?
Is it at Wolves?
Yeah.
Yes. That's the Monday game, by the way, guys.
I think Liverpool might go there and win 2-1 and begin a mini fight back.
Okay. Tony?
It depends what Wolves turns up. They could cause a lot of trouble for any team, and we've seen that. The fact that they've had a week off as well, and they've had more than a week off, I'm going to think that they're going to be supercharged and ready for this game. So I'm going to go with Wolves 2-1.
Okay, I think Apollo is saying a draw game. I'm going to pick Liverpool 2-1. I think with Jota in the middle, I think they bench Firmino again. And Fabinho, most importantly, play in front of the defense to give them that security. I think they come out with a victory. Wolves struggle. I don't think Traore has scored all season, even though he's a good player. They don't have enough punch up front to score goals, so I think they'll struggle.
Wolves have been decimated by the loss of Jimenez.
Yes.
But also, not only that, but they also sold their second top goal scorer, Jota, to Liverpool, and their third top goal scorer, Doherty, to Tottenham.
I didn't understand those decisions. I'm not sure what drove it. It's not like because they reinvested the money in players who I think weren't as good. So I'm not sure I understand that strategy. And now we come to the game of the weekend, if I think about all the games, which is Spurs versus Arsenal. And I want you guys to tell me who you score you're predicting, but also the reason why. I'll go with Andy first.
I'm torn between 3-1 Spurs and 4-1 Spurs. I believe we're going to go to the Emirates and stamp our authority all over this game.
You're going to stamp something. I don't know about what. We'll call it authority.
I obviously now I've set myself up an Arsenal win 4-2 or something, and you lot are going to cane me all on Sunday night. But I just believe right now that Spurs are playing with a lot of confidence, particularly in the forward areas. And if Arsenal give Bale, Kane, and Son, and also Moura, in our higher press, which we've been doing recently, if we play that high press, Moura's been quite actually impressive in that part of it, nicking the ball here and there, and he's a very skillful player, Moura. And I think that front four at the moment is causing a lot of problems for teams. If you start messing around, if Xhaka and Ceballos or whoever you play in there, probably Partey, I guess he'll be fit, so I suppose he'll be in there. If they start messing around with the ball, I think you could struggle a bit. But then you're also capable of getting at our back line as well. So we'll see. Sorry.
No problem. Tony?
So the thing I would say is Arsenal definitely perform better where teams come out and play. We don't like teams that sit deep. So in an ideal world, another 5-4 wouldn't go amiss. But realistically, I feel if Spurs go ahead, Mourinho will know how to manage the game so that they don't lose. If we go ahead, then I think it's a different kettle of fish.
I think the first goal could be very important in the game.
Yeah. So I'm going to hope for Arsenal 3-2. We've seen a lot of goals in this fixture in the last few years.
Yeah, Arsenal winless. I think Apollo saying Arsenal winless in their previous 5 league and cup games against Spurs.
You haven't beaten us since 2018. It was 2.5 years.
Not very long ago.
No, but I mean, you haven't in the last five league fixtures. You haven't beaten us.
Yeah.
And Apollo has more stats, which are not encouraging. Arsenal have only beaten Spurs in 2 of the last 35 home league games against Tottenham. Wow.
Yeah,
I do think Spurs.
We've got a shocking record at your place. Like Apollo says, we've only won at your place twice in the last however many years, 20 years or whatever it is.
You're not playing at our place. You're playing at a fanless stadium. You're not playing at our place. There's no fans.
It's at Arsenal.
Yeah, but there's no fans in the stand. It's not our place. It's
okay, but
it's like,
you know what I mean.
Ground. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying it doesn't count as much this time around. There's no vitriol. There is nobody shouting in Bale's ear and calling him all sort of names. You don't feel that same pressure.
I was there for that fantastic one of those 2 games. That fantastic one where you were 2-0 up at half time, and we came back and won 3-2 when Kabul got that header, and that I was there that day. That was a fantastic day. That was.
Yeah, I do. Look, it depends on what team Arteta plays. Our best game to me was when we beat Man U 1-0 at Man U when we got a penalty, and we had El Neni and Partey in the middle, dominating the midfield. So you got to control your belly, and what he keeps doing is playing Xhaka, who's error prone, who is not fast of foot, who makes the wrong decision at the wrong time. Partey hasn't played excellently. Let's be clear about that. But I think he'd be up for this game. I think if he plays El Neni, who's very secure, who's going to control the ball, who doesn't make mistakes, who see the pass before he gets the ball, then he can feed the front 3. I do think if he plays William, who doesn't score, that's not a good thing. He's been playing well of late, but he doesn't score. You need goal scorers on the pitch. You need somebody Spurs going to be afraid of. They'll be concerned about Pepe, Saka on the other side, Aubameyang to the middle, and Odegaard playing behind. That front 4 can be dangerous if they can get the ball from Partey, if they can get the ball from El Neni. And also the concerns at the back. Are you going to play David Luiz, who we know is going to make a mistake when he gets pressure because he can't take pressure? And Kane, Son, and Bale puts a lot of pressure on you. The question is who plays in your number 10?
I'll tell you why we shouldn't play David Luiz. Because we know what Son can do. If he gets a run on David Luiz, game over.
Yeah, well, he will get a run at some point.
You need that somebody who can, put his body and.
I think Tony is frozen. I think we've lost Tony.
My other prediction for Sunday is that Son will break his goal scoring drought because he's not scored for a while, Sonny, and I think he's going to break his drought on Sunday. And if he does,
it's not this Sunday. You're talking about next Sunday, right? Because I think you guys play next Sunday. So I think you have that. We don't want to have that drought going. Look, Son is an excellent player. Not sure he's not scoring of late, but Bale is picking up the slack, right? That's the thing that you have on your team. You have 3 proven goal scorers. William has not been scoring. Saka doesn't score a lot of goals. So all the pressure is on Aubameyang to score or defenders. Luiz is scoring. Gabriel is scoring. Everyone has had more goals than we haven't had 1 goal from William all season, and he's played more than 25 games. I think it's 26, 27 games. So,
and I think you do Saka a disservice because although he hasn't scored a lot, he does get in position to score regularly.
Yeah. That doesn't count, Tony.
I'd rather have a player who gets there and doesn't. But William doesn't even look like he can get in the position.
I would agree that Saka gets in position, but when he gets in position, he doesn't finish. He misses some easy chances. And look, I'm glad Odegaard scored in the week because I do want Andy to come on here next week and says, I apologize for saying we're going to stomp you at the Emirates. And look, I'm predicting a 2-2 game.
I've just got my big wooden spoon out. That's all it is.
Yeah, I predict a 2-2 game because I do think that we are vulnerable to. We're going to make mistakes. As Andy says, if they press, unless we go over the top, we're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. David Luiz, Xhaka, two of the most error-prone players in the Premier League history, playing against Spurs with all their potent front three, or if they played Ndombele in the 10 slot front four. But you're probably going to play Sissoko and Højbjerg, I think, deep, protect the back line, and then play those four up top. So interesting game, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully we win. So I think we've come to the end of the program. I want to thank everyone for joining us for another week of our Premier League Forum. And by the way, for the perspective on Andy, this is a Premier League Forum where we invite fans from all teams to join. It's not an Arsenal 101 forum, it's a Premier League Forum. And Andy and Tony, thanks for joining us. Any last words, Andy?
Come on, you Spurs.
Tony?
Come on, you Gunners!
I heard Marino says he doesn't look down.
Yeah.
He
was starting the pot.
He's starting his mind games again. I think Andrew's saying William hat-trick, Xhaka hat-trick freak. I think Andrew it's about 11 o'clock in the UK, so Andrew's drinking. William hat-trick. Man hasn't scored a goal all year. I'm not sure why you're drinking this late. It's a good time to start drinking because the pub is like
from Barbados. You know them Bajan like a drink, boy.
The Bajan like they drink, huh? Yeah, must be. Well, too much drinking, Andy, because William is not scoring. This is not the William from Chelsea who can put a free kick in the corner.
He had a very good record against us when he was playing for Chelsea.
Well, hopefully that turns up on Sunday, but because he's going to start. We haven't seen it. But thanks everyone for joining us.
Take it easy, guys.
Hope we have a great weekend of games and hope Arsenal sends Marino home. Have him start looking down versus looking up. Thanks for joining us and see you again next week. Bye-bye now.
Take it easy, man. See you later.